Hi, I'm Brian Timmer. I'm a painter and I have my own gallery as well. A lot of people know me for large landscapes that I do, but I also do abstract work too. Sometimes I use oil paint, sometimes acrylic, and sometimes I do collage where I end up doing something that sort of merges the two different styles. I've been working as an artist on and off for at least 25 years and working as a full-time artist for the past 10. I grew up in Michigan and went to Western Michigan University where I got a painting degree. And I have since moved to Lawrence, Kansas with my wife. We lived there for 13 years. And now we moved to Cody, Wyoming about 6 years ago. Cody's really close to the east entrance of Yellowstone National Park. So that's a pretty different place than where I grew up. But regardless of where I've lived, I've always created work. And I can remember being just a 6-year-old boy and getting a set of crayons and doing this coloring contest at a Meijer grocery store. And I worked so hard on this drawing and I couldn't believe it, but the day came when I got a phone call that said I was the first place, winner of this competition. And so that was one of my earliest memories. But it wasn't until I was probably in my teenage years, maybe 15 or so, someone gave me a set of oil paints and I realized wow, this is really awesome. I think I'm supposed to be making paintings. So that's where things really kind of changed. But I think a person is just born with that creative, artistic part of themselves. So, you kind of can't help it. You just have to make things. It's just who we are. The artistic journey is an interesting one. As a younger person, I always thought of myself as an abstract artist or an abstract expressionist maybe. I was just interested in creating from raw feelings spontaneously and just seeing what formed. And the work was always really challenging to make, and there was a lot of ups and there's a lot of downs, and I was kind of all over the board as an artist and really frankly quite frustrated a lot of the time. And it wasn't until, 10 years ago or so when I decided just sort of randomly that maybe I'll try to paint a landscape painting. Why wouldn't I do that? As a younger person, I'd sort of written off landscapes like they were boring and I didn't need to worry about those. But then I decided to try one, and it turns out they're actually really fun to create. And it really got me back into painting because I had taken pretty much years off as an artist. And so it was the landscape painting that really kind of got me back into it. I've discovered since then that not only are landscape paintings really fun to make, but they're challenging too, and they always keep my interest. And I'm always going out and looking for new subject matter and taking photos and talking to other artists or photographers and sometimes doing a little bit of collaborative effort to make them happen. And the other cool thing is that I've just discovered there's just a huge audience that enjoys that type of work. So it's allowed me to make art more full time just because there's so much interest there. And I love it. But I kind of see the two different approaches to creating as really having different tasks, where the abstract work is drawing a person into a deeper level of engagement, looking more at the interior world, where the landscapes focus more on the outer world or the exterior world. And they really just have different functions, sort of. And it's hard to actually go back and forth. When I get some abstracts going, I just want to keep going that direction. And then occasionally I'll have to switch back to the landscapes, and then I want to keep going that direction. So I really just find that both styles are compelling and interesting and challenging for different reasons. And it's just who I am, and I can't help it. And I'm just going to keep adding on to how I create and what I create. So I have 3 different processes for making art, or different ways of creating. I've got the big landscape paintings, the abstract work, and the collage work. With the landscapes, it just kind of comes down to trying to find a really compelling image. something that really speaks to me, where I see it and I just think, wow, there's some magic to this. I just want to put it on canvas so bad. And if I get a big canvas, the better. So the bigger the painting, I think the better the painting for me. I'm really known for really dramatic skies that I use oil paints for, but I also like to use acrylic too with landscapes, and that creates some more abstract qualities to the work. So it's pretty straightforward with that kind of work, that genre. But with abstract work, it's a little different. That I have a whole different process where I'm putting down different levels or layers to the painting and building up. And that each work goes through a lot of iterations generally, where the scene just keeps changing and I keep adding things. So I might start with acrylic paint for the base and then start putting some oils on top and maybe some oil stick to make those real thick kind of marks and lines, and they just kind of have a mind of their own, it seems like, when I create that type of work. And then with the collage work, it's completely almost like the two are merged, because I'm usually working with representational subject matter that you know what you're looking at, but I'm finding creative processes or ways to make the scene work. Different clippings, different paint, piecing things together in such a way that it just sort of works as a piece, that you understand what you're looking at, but there's all these layers to it. Sometimes abstract qualities, sometimes text that you want to read, sometimes just the merging of textures and shapes that make it interesting to look at. So I really see the collage work as sort of like merging the two other styles together in a sense. Sometimes people ask me who my influences are, or the people who have shaped me artistically. There's not actually anyone in my family that does art. The professors I had in undergraduate school were definitely formative, and a lot of those guys were shaped by the 60s and 70s, and they were more into the psychology of the work and how it was being created, what was going into it. In terms of artists that I've really appreciated, people like Basquiat or de Kooning, I love those artists and the kind of rawness to their work. I love the playfulness of Alexander Calder. There's so many amazing artists. It wasn't until I went to Paris back in probably 20 years ago, but I got to go to the Musée Picasso museum. And that was when I really just was blown away by Picasso. Before I'd gone to that museum, I didn't really care about his work, but it all started to connect when I was over there. Creating art all the time is a real challenge. I remember in undergraduate school, they had told us when we were in class, they said, when you guys are out of here, within 5 years, 5% of you are still going to be making work. And at the time I thought, that's crazy, come on, we're all going to be making work. And everybody sort of gasped, no, that's not true. But you get done with school and you get a job, and there's no audience, there's no deadlines, there's no, a lot of your friends are gone. It is hard to keep making work, and I can see why so many people kind of fall off the map when it comes to making stuff. For me, I'm so glad I can do it full time, because I have to do it for my living, and I love it. But I've had to figure out over time how to do that. In the beginning, the first couple of years were the hardest. You just kind of took it month by month, trying to get the next painting opportunity or sell another piece. But over time, you learn that you can take photographs of your work and make really nice prints and offer a whole bunch of different ways of getting the work and enjoying it. And really, it kind of comes down to having multiple ways to have the income coming in. And so once you figure out that it doesn't have to be just one thing, it can be kind of multiple things, then you find out that, wow, I can maybe do this for a living. And over the course of all these years, it's gotten easier and easier. And when you have the space and the time to do it, that's huge. And being in a place where people can find you, I would tell other artists, younger artists, you need to be where people can find you. If people can't find you, they can't find you. So that's a big deal. But I've just enjoyed this journey, and I'm so grateful that I feel like I've come to a place where I'm going to be able to do this the rest of my life. One of the coolest things about having your own gallery is that people can come in and they can hang out with you whenever they're around. And you just have an event space that you can do things in whenever you want to with whoever. So back in Lawrence, Kansas, I led a group. I called it Creating Art and Business, but it's mainly set up for artists who are trying to figure out how to make a living with their work. And so we would get together a couple times a month and discuss all the different approaches to trying to make a living as an artist. And that was a lot of fun. And since I moved to Cody, Wyoming, I've had a couple other opportunities like that too, where I got to work with some of the high school artists that were trying to figure out, they just really wanted to come in and see what does it look like to have a studio gallery and make work and everything. So we did that too. A lot of the really fun things I've done have been big public works. So there's a big mural downtown here in Cody that I did. It's kind of hidden down an alley, but a lot of people refer to it as a hidden gem in Cody, just because it's not in your face, but it's a statement too. And so that's been kind of cool. But I've done other works, especially in Lawrence, Kansas, big works. Like the Lawrence Beer Company is a fantastic brewery and restaurant. And I had the chance to create this 30-foot long storm painting for those guys. Just a huge dramatic storm. And it just covered the entire wall of this restaurant. And it was really cool to have that opportunity. It is so important to have some of those chances to make that work and connect with people who see it. And the same thing here, there's a really great steakhouse here in Cody where I created a really dramatic scene. It's close to the east entrance of Yellowstone, right in the middle of the Shoshone River. The sun is setting and the mountains are in the background, and it's probably one of my strongest pieces that I've made since I moved here. But getting those big public works like that really is a great connecting point to connect with the community and to make friendships and to get new opportunities from it as well. Some of my favorite pieces are the ones where I've had to go out and look for inspiring images. And last year was a really cool one. I had a chance to create this huge painting at Livingston Elementary School. That's right up the hill from the gallery here in Cody. I went out on the South Fork, which is south of Cody, really beautiful area. Went down by the river in the fall. The leaves were just blowing in the breeze and flickering, and the water was moving, and it was just so cool. And that was a really amazing time. I took photos and I just knew when I was clicking that this is magic, absolute magic. So once I had that image, then I went and painted it with the kids. I had the kids help me do all the foundational part, like the very first level of the painting, or the first stage. And then I built off of that, but it's 16 feet long or wide and 8 feet tall. And that was a really cool piece. And that was done with acrylic paint. So the really cool thing about acrylic paints with landscapes and doing it large is that I can put energy into the work and move my arms and use bigger brushes, and there's a certain abstract quality to the movement and the edges, but at the same time it's beautiful, you know what you're looking at, it's making sense, but that you can enjoy the work on multiple levels. And that same thing happened with a piece I did for someone in Scottsdale, Arizona. The people flew me down. I did a photo field trip over the course of 2 or 3 days. I took hundreds of photos for this piece. And it's a 6 by 9 foot piece. It's 9 feet tall. And I just, right before I had to go to the airport, at the very end actually, is when I got the photo. But there's a storm rolling in, and it's just this incredible place. I just remember seeing that and being like, this is a painting right here. And so it's big, it's dramatic, and it's just so fun to do that kind of work. And then when you take that big work and you maybe make a smaller print of it, it's like so cool because suddenly you have this smaller version of it that anybody can have, but only one person has that really unique, special original, and it's just kind of cool. Another favorite work of mine was one I did for a speakeasy style bar in Lawrence, Kansas. The bar is called John Brown's Underground, and they wanted to merge John Brown with the speakeasy scene, which, I was trying to figure out how this was going to work, but what I did is I just took Lawrence in the 1920s, the downtown, and I took all this information from the 20s, the speakeasy scene, and I merged it with John Brown, And there's all sorts of cool things going on in that piece. That was one of the first public works I did when I started working full time. And there's all sorts of Jayhawk information in it because it's Lawrence, Kansas. It's the home of basketball. It's the place, right? So I just included all sorts of things in that piece, from flapper girls holding championship trophies to Bill Self and the head coach of the basketball team. There's just so many things going on in that piece that made it fun. And then as I was doing that piece, literally another brewery came to me and said, "We want you to make a piece for us." And so the Blind Tiger Brewery in Topeka, Kansas, they have a 12-foot long painting on the history of beer. So I moved from the ancient world to the monastic period to hops and the implementation of hops and, prohibition, and then its counter movement and all the way through. It's a huge painting. It's in a great brewery. And so both of those projects are actually really fun to create. One of the cool things about being an artist who takes commissions is that you're always doing different projects for different people all over the place. And sometimes you're painting things that you might not have painted otherwise. So something unique in my portfolio is an opportunity I had to paint the Amalfi Coast, the southern coast of Italy. And it's a 5x5 foot painting, and it's a brilliant blue water with that iconic hillside. And I never would have thought, it's the only one in my entire portfolio that looks like this, but I got a call a couple years ago from Penguin Random House, the big book publisher. They wanted to know if they could take that painting and use it on a New York Times bestseller. Sophie Kinsella is a UK author with a whole series of books. But that's what they did. They took a chunk of that painting and used it as the background for this cover. So, that's the kind of stuff. It's like, as an artist, it's like, just keep making stuff. You don't know what's gonna fall in your lap eventually, or the things that are gonna happen because of it. The other fun thing that happened a year ago, I guess almost 2 years ago now, was Cowboys and Indians did a write-up too on me, which is kind of fun to have your work in Western magazine that a lot of people in this area and all over the place in the United States and in the world follow. So, it's kind of like you just got to keep making stuff no matter what, and good things can happen. If I had to offer some tips for an artist who is trying to figure out how to make a living doing this, number one, I would say you want to make sure you're in a place where people can find you. That is so critical. People don't know where you're at. They can't look at your work. They can't buy anything. So for me, I moved from my basement that I had to a downtown studio with other artists to a part of a store, and then another store, and then my own gallery. And so over time, I just tried to get myself in a spot where more and more people could find out who I was and what I do. And that's huge. You kind of need to know yourself though, because not all artists want to interact with the public like I do. I enjoy talking to people. I have no problem with people walking in here, coming in my studio, watching me paint. I'm okay with that. So you kind of got to know yourself. The other thing that's really helped me is breaking the artwork up into different ways that people can enjoy it. So I have everything from a $5 magnet in here to a $10,000 painting, and then there's prints in between. So I have things on canvas and on paper and on scarves and necklaces and puzzles. I want anyone who's traveling through this area, a lot of people coming to go to Yellowstone National Park, they're gonna maybe come in here. I want to have something that they can easily grab and bring with them. So you gotta be smart about it. And that helps too. The other thing that I think is really big is having a great website. And I use Art Storefronts for that. It's an awesome, robust platform for artists. It gives them a lot of different ways to help people purchase their work. And I mean, it is just huge to have something like that. The other thing is taking commissions. I mean, not all artists want to take commissions, but I'll tell you what, it's really nice. Like right now, it's a slow time of year right here. So it's great to have a painting to do for someone in those off months. So you're just trying to make yourself nimble and, use all the resources you have to try to just find people and see that income coming in different ways. It can make it actually really possible to do this. One thing I would say that's so important to who I am as an artist is believing that what I'm creating has some sort of mysterious significance and meaning and beauty to it. Regardless if it's abstract or realism, landscape or collage or any of it, just to know that I can follow my gut on the decisions I make and that they're going to be the right ones. Whether I'm looking at an image of a beautiful landscape or I'm doing something really expressive and abstract, I just need to follow my heart, my gut, throughout the process, and know that something meaningful will arrive at the end, and that regardless of whether or not somebody cares for the piece or not, doesn't matter, because there's life in that piece, in every brushstroke, in everything I do. There's something meaningful there, and it just depends on the person who's viewing it, whether or not they're taking that in or not. But I just believe that to my core. Thanks for watching. I'm Brian Timmer. You can find my work on my website at www.briantimmerart.com, or you can follow me on Instagram. That's briantimmer.art. Or you can look me up on my Facebook business page too. I've got Timmer Gallery, Brian Timmer Art. So you can just look me up at any of those spots, see what I'm up to. I post stages as I create. There's lots of fun things to watch there. So thanks for following along.